Shared reality arises not because each person sees the world as it is, but because our brains share enough evolutionary hardware, cultural training, and mutual correction to keep our hallucinations tightly constrained. When two people witness the same event and later remember it differently, what differs is not simply their memory, but their entire construction of reality for those moments built from diverging predictions, filtered by individual experience. Communication, argument, and learning are at their core methods for updating those models to increase their overlap and agreement. Perhaps then, the most radical implication of a predictive, hallucinatory brain is not alienation but empathy, a widening recognition that the world you perceive, so vivid and unquestioned, is only a best guess, not a shared absolute. Every other human, animal, or mind inhabits their own unique simulation, sometimes convergent with yours, sometimes not. To wonder, to listen, to question your certainty is to recognize the boundaries of your own model, and to remain alive to the possibility of worlds within worlds. In the end, what you see is not a direct recording of external events, but a brilliantly engineered, perpetually revised, sketch-generated, maintained, and believed by the most advanced simulation engine on the planet, the ordinary, everyday human brain. And as you move through your life reading faces, crossing streets, dreaming, remembering, choosing each instant is filtered through this system, leaping from probability to certainty to surprise in a dance that never quite touches the ground. To live is to be forever suspended between perception and prediction, always a little out of phase with reality, forever astonished and forever adapting to what comes next. Where does the hallucination end and reality begin? Science says you may never know. Every time you check, every test you run, you return the results to the very system that's performing the hallucination. There's no final external reference point available to conscious beings. Instead, you live suspended in the middle of a model that is yours alone. A best guess shaped by lifetimes of experience, training, and luck. Think, as you experiment with your blind spot, not just how easily the world can vanish, but how perfectly your mind erases the erasure, how unwavering your sense of sight remains in the face of relentless absence. Perception is not merely a window, it is a cinema where you are the director, the audience, the screenwriter, and, ultimately, the one forever suspended between scene and reality, between hallucination and the possibility of something real. This understanding isn't cause for despair, but for wonder. To live is to dwell within a tapestry spun by your own neurons, a construction so rich, so convincing, that you not only trust it, you rarely dream of questioning it at all. If a blind spot can be so perfectly erased, if color and contour dissolve seamlessly into pattern, what else about your experience might be constructed rather than received? Neuroscientists now tell us that your entire waking reality is a controlled hallucination, a simulation so advanced it hides its seams, leaving you suspended in a world crafted not by direct access to the physical, but by a torrent of internal predictions. At every second, networks deep inside your brain anticipate, hypothesize, and test their guesses against the faint, flickering input that your senses supply. Nowhere is this mechanism more evident than in the moments when the outside world goes silent, ambiguous or contradictory, and your mind rushes in to complete the picture. Dreams offer the most dramatic proof. Consciousness released from the anchor of physical input, freely spinning entire worlds from fragments of memory and imagination, governed by the same neural machinery that produces waking vision. Hallucinations during illness, sensory deprivation, or neurological injury are not alien glitches. They are the brain replaying its default algorithm, prediction untethered, filling in for the silence or chaos of unreliable signals. Such aberrant states only throw into relief the astonishing stability of everyday awareness, where prediction and correction keep you woven into a world that feels steady and real. Still, for all the stability, you cannot escape the truth. The boundary between illusion and reality is a matter of degree. Even in broad daylight, with eyes wide open, most of what you call seeing is actually inferring. The likely causes for every flash of color, every shifting shadow, every face partly glimpsed, these are not consciously compiled. Instead, thousands of neural loops operate in parallel, relentlessly predicting not just what is there now, but what will be there next. You do not see the buzzing confusion of raw sensation. You see arrangements that maximize the usefulness of experience. The predictive brain is unerringly efficient. It does not commit resources to verifying every last detail, only correcting itself when something unexpected appears, when a prediction fails and demands attention. Carl Friston's free energy principle has placed mathematical language around this process, describing your brain as not just a passive recipient of stimuli, but an engine designed expressly to minimize prediction error. It does this by constantly updating its models for what should come next, refining and adjusting its internal map so that reality rarely surprises it, seeking not the truth at every moment, but the experience of being well-oriented, safe, and able to act without hesitation. When the model is wrong, when the world pushes back with surprise or disorder, your attention sharpens, your model updates, and reality momentarily peeks through the cracks. This tension between prediction and correction is what makes some illusions so mesmerizing. Look at a phantom limb patient who feels their missing hand itch and twitch, or at the victim of hemispatial neglect who cannot attend to half the world and yet walks, smiles, eats confident in the wholeness of their subjective experience. Such cases are not brain glitches, but revelations. They show that much of subjective reality is unmoored from physical facts, bound instead to the current priorities and predictions that the mind sets. The self too emerges from this storm, your body's boundaries, your sense of agency, even the persistence of your character, all maintained by continuous self-modeling inside your brain, endlessly updated in response to shifting input and memory. Philosophy has long struggled with the gap between appearance and essence, between the world as it seems and the world as it is. Predictive processing brings these age-old dilemmas to a new climax. If every experience is colored by prior expectation, and every perception suffused with remembered probability, how can you ever hope to step outside your simulation and access raw, unmediated truth? Any attempt to peer outside must use the very faculties that are already part of the hallucination. The question of whether you could ever compare your model with the real thing becomes, in practice, unanswerable. There is no need to despair. Indeed, these findings reveal not a fatal flaw, but an awe-inspiring solution. If the brain could not invent a plausible, actionable world from fragmentary, noisy input, survival would be impossible. The very richness of inner experience is testimony to the evolutionary genius of this system. Even creativity, insight, and invention depend on flexible modeling, on the ability to recombine details, test new hypotheses, and update old beliefs, all within the bounds of what the current sensory world allows. Picture yourself staring straight ahead, certain that your eyes transmit a flawless, unbroken world to your brain, trusting in the fidelity of your senses the way you trust the ground beneath your feet. Yet behind this certainty lies a mystery so radical it undermines everything you believe about perception. Even as you gaze into the world, there are gaps in your vision holes where your eyes send zero information yet you perceive absolute continuity. Not a single moment of your life has given you reason to suspect that right now as you read this sentence. There are points in your field of vision where photons from the world never reach you, where your direct sight disappears completely, and your brain fills in the voids by fabricating a seamless image. This invisible fabrication isn't a rare glitch. It is the very foundation of seeing. The brain's hallucination is so convincing, so perfectly edited, that you can live an entire life oblivious to its existence. But with a simple test, anyone can force the trick into the light. Close your right eye, fix your gaze on a spot, and slowly move an object across your peripheral vision until, without warning, it vanishes. For an instant, the object ceases to be. Not faded, not blurry, not flickering, a clear, crisp absence. And yet, you perceive unbroken color, pattern, and space where a moment ago there was something real. This isn't bug to be ironed out. Evolution has not patched the blind spot because it's easier and more efficient for the brain to invent reality on the fly, constructing what it expects based on everything it knows about context, probability, and past experience. What you see, then, is a narrative built from fragments, a patchwork so skillful that you never notice the seams. The world in your mind is a moving masterpiece, constantly assembled by guesswork, inference, and expectation. When the senses deliver rich, consistent data, the brain's model is bolstered by reality. When input is corrupted or missing, the mind fills gaps with its own best guess, projecting color, shape, and motion as if they were faithfully rendered by the external world. Illusions are the windows into this creative process, exposing the machinery that runs beneath consciousness. The simplest illusion shatters confidence. A checkerboard's shadow tricks you into seeing squares of different brightness, but digital measurement proves they are identical. The mind expects certain physical laws, biases, and shadows, and it bends perception to match those expectations. When you focus on a white mask turned inward, your brain refuses to believe in concavity and pops the face outward. The sensation of motion after staring at cascading water, the fleeting swirl when you look away, is not reality but your neurons' attempt to correct for recent trends. A forecast gone wild in the absence of real data. From the first flicker of vision in infancy, your brain begins to build a towering edifice of assumptions. Lines tend to stay joined. Lighting comes from above. Faces have certain proportions, and motion follows patterns. These rules are encoded by repetition, stored as templates, and employed unconsciously every second of your waking life. When your senses meet these expectations, when a scene fits the model, perception feels effortless and direct. When something violates the rules, your mind struggles, making up plausible details to preserve the illusion, or if the anomaly is too strong, allowing a crack the oddity of an illusion or the breathtaking absence revealed by a deliberate test. But the most astonishing part is how unchecked this creative process remains. Every moment, as you blink, shift focus, or move your gaze in a flash across the room, your brain stitches together static images, peripheral blurs, and discontinuous flickers into a single stream of motion and stability. Colors are interpreted relative to their surroundings, so a gray square can look vivid blue if the context requires it. You may move through familiar spaces, identifying faces, reading emotions, and navigating obstacles, all while much of the detail is guesswork derived from your habits, your mood, your memory, and the flicker's worth of data your eyes actually provide. During a movie, your mind transforms still images 24 frames per second into seamless, flowing action using the same pattern completion toolset it relies on in life. In everyday interactions, if an object or person is partially blocked from sight, your mind fills in the occluded parts, confidently presenting a complete picture. This phenomenon, known as perceptual completion, is so automatic you rarely question the wholeness of what you see, even though whole swaths of scenes are constructed on suggestion alone. Change blindness is perhaps the most revealing test. Swap objects, alter colors, or even erase elements in a room as someone looks away, and often they are none the wiser. The internal story is so robust that drastic manipulations can pass unnoticed, leaving the subject certain of what they saw, unaware that their perception was, for stretched moments, almost pure invention. Your world is, in many crucial moments, a provable illusion. And yet this creative hallucination is a masterpiece of balance. For the most part, the predictions are good enough. The guesses do not just keep you safe, they give you the speed to dodge, to read subtle cues, to experience joy, danger, and wonder at a world that seems stable and sharp. Your survival depends on the system updating its hallucinations just enough to account for surprises, yet not so much that the world becomes a confusion of discontinuities. When the unexpected happens, a jolt, a crash, an impossible shadow, only then does the hallucination tremble and the underlying approximations skip a beat.